to the channel. This video is meant to be seen after watching Justin Baldoni's natal chart breakdown. We are just hitting the ground running on January 1st, trying to keep up with pop culture for my dear life. So much is happening. They hit the ground running in 2025. My name is Ashley Brianna Eve. I am a longtime astrologer, professional astrologer. It's what I do full time. And I also have what I would almost say is an obsession with pop culture since the time I was a child. So on this channel, you're going to see a lot of pop culture and astrology. I like to teach you about astrology through the lens of pop culture rather than just teaching videos. I find it a lot more fun and we see it in action rather than just random points that we're talking about. I'm also trained by the International Human Design School and the BG5 Institute in the Science of Differentiation, Human Design. And that is what we are talking about here. So again, I do recommend checking out the natal chart reading first. However, we're just going to dive into the human design of it all. Let's have a look. The first thing I want to say when we are understanding the energy between these three is I would say they were really never meant to work together. Justin Baldoni, Ryan Reynolds, and Blake Lively were problems waiting to happen. Sorry, I'm going to be drinking. Damn it, I should have filled up my coffee before I started. Did not sleep last night, so I am tired AF. These three people were, it's oil and water with them. And I'm going to show you some of the reasons why and how energy can interact. So I want you to think about, as we break this down, I want you to put yourself in their shoes. Have you ever been around someone where you don't know why, but they just rub you the wrong way? You don't know why. Like they could say the most innocent thing and you're just like, right? Like it just, someone grates on you, or it feels like you're always in conflict with someone and you don't know why, and they don't even know why. Like both of you are like, I don't even understand why we have a problem with each other, but we just don't get along. This is something that in human design we call, and now here, let me pull up and I can show you it in action here. We call it compromise channels and dominance channels. If we're comparing it to astrology, I'd almost say it's like a square or an opposition, right? Like it's energy that's like not necessarily feeling good. And Ryan, there's a lot of conflict energy when we look at their charts. Now, let's start with actually Justin's profile. He's a 3-5. So the 3 in the front shows that this is someone that their entire life is learning through trial and error. And that trial and error comes about, right angle cross of the unexpected, through unexpected circumstances, right? So he's had to learn the hard way through life, first of all. But that third line, there is a resilience to it, but it just feels like I work with a lot of clients that are third lines, and I'm a 4-6 in my profile. And the 6th line mimics the third line in many ways for the first 30 years of their life. And so I can also relate to the third line. I like the third line. I want you to think of, you go to, like, it's the school of hard knocks, your life. Like you always learn things through trial and error. It feels like you're always learning things the hard way. That is definitely him. So when we even hear about his history with addiction and issues, like that's typical third line, like learning the hard way. And then if you had watched the natal reading, make sure you also watch the natal chart reading for Justin Baldoni. That also, for the third line, it's very much your mess is your message. So when I'm helping someone build a business or a brand and they have a third line, we're leveraging their experiences and the trial and error they've gone through, some of it messy, to build their brand, because your mess is your message. That's how you became the expert in something. That's how you gained expertise in something or experience in something, is like going through the muck of it yourself. And so it doesn't surprise me that he went on a spiritual path. And it doesn't surprise me that he like intentionally likely attempted to better himself, and that he has a little bit of a darker past and he's fallen down. He's made a lot of mistakes and he will continue to. That third line is a theme through your entire life. That doesn't go away, right? So that's going to be kind of how he learns consciously. And yet this is something I want to focus on as well. The 5th line, I also want to focus on here because Justin has it as unconscious. So it's the design. It's the 2nd number. But look who has it consciously. Ryan Reynolds, which is really interesting to me. When it's unconscious, so with his profile, those numbers come from If you see here, personality, sun, earth, it's the line. So he's gate 41, line 3. So it's going to be the first number. It's conscious. You have access to it, conscious awareness to it. The 5, that leader energy, that practical solutions, heretic energy, is unconscious. When we see a line such as the 5, which is all about projections, unconscious, this can also set that person up for a lot of like awkward situations because they don't understand why they're being projected on. And I think for him in many respects as well, with that unconscious 5th line being projected on, he was attempting to live up to it and maybe even playing off of it in creating his persona and creating his public image and his brand. But that's unconscious. Whereas we look at someone like Ryan Reynolds, and the 5th line is conscious. So he's aware, like, I'm meant to be the leader. I understand people are going to project on me, so I'm taking control of the narrative. He understands that. It's conscious. Doesn't mean people still don't project, but there's a lot more control over the narrative when it's conscious rather than unconscious. I want to read you guys something directly from one of the textbooks from studying at the International Human Design School on what Ra said. Because I want it to be like directly from Ra Ruhu, what he said about the 5th line. Now, I get a lot of 5th lines that really don't like me. Well, I love working with 5th lines, but why they don't like me is because the 5th line has a nastiness to it. And it's so funny. I just want to kind of poke fun at the situation. But I'll say that the 5th line has a nastiness to it. And then I'll get 5th lines being nasty in my comments because I said they're nasty. And I'm like, do we not see what's going on here? Like, you're being kind of an ass because I said the 5th line was nasty. Maybe we could call that nastiness. But anyway, I want to read what Ra Ruhu said because this is going to be an important theme when we're looking at the body graphs today. He says, there's nothing nastier than a 5. Talk about the hard edge, pure, sheer, unadulterated nastiness. It's a byproduct of paranoia. Important. You cannot be a heretic unless you're nasty. And nastiness is also what gets you burned at the stake. All right. I don't want to tell you how to think. I just want to present the information, the energy to you. So if you're going to be nasty, you better be right. And we saw that in his natal chart, right? The potential for emotionally impulsive decisions, the potential for crossing over from assertiveness to aggression, or what we might see as nastiness in the 5th line, right? That is it aligned? Is it assertive? Or I'm going into this nastiness, even if I see it as protection, even if I see it as like paranoia, I feel like, from him and what we can kind of extrapolate from what's come out so far, I think this nastiness, if we look at from Ra Ruhu's perspective, a byproduct of paranoia, whether it was real or not, I really feel like some of this nastiness came out as almost like a self-protection because he felt they, whether intentionally or not, were taking over the film. And so this 5th line nastiness came out. So he says, if you're going to be nasty, you better be right. I love nastiness. I agree. I love an aligned, embodied 5th line. He said, it's so amusing. When I first started and everyone was coming off from sorry guys. He says, when I first started and everyone was coming from these nice, smiling, happy teachers and gurus, it was so nice to say fuck off. It was wonderful. So perfectly 5 nasty. I remember someone saying to me, but don't you care? No, I said, but that wasn't true. That's something else about 5s. Nastiness is part of their protection. One of the things the 5 realizes from the time it is born is that anyone who tries to know it is an idiot, including its mother. None of these beings that seem to be hanging around them know them, but at the same time, they want something from them. And they may or may not be able to deliver, like the 5th line. So Justin Baldoni may or may not be able to deliver. We want to think of the 5th line with Ra Ruhu. I know sometimes Ra can be difficult to understand. What Ra Ruhu is basically saying is people project on you. And because there's this projection field around the 5 line, people don't really know you. Well, what happens? Britney Spears is also a 5th line. We project on someone. We don't really know them. We project on someone. And often the 5th line tries to live up to that too. And I do think there's a layer of Justin having been playing into it. I don't mean playing into it in a rude way or a bad way. I think he genuinely wants to be what the image he's creating. I genuinely think that. But we need to keep in mind with the fifth line, there's always going to be a projection field. Therefore, you never fully know them, right? And so they get this nastiness or this almost what we could almost refer to as like reactivity as a form of like protection for themselves. So Ra Ruhu continues and says, you cannot just walk into my aura. You can't do that to me. I'll be nasty. That's just me. Now, this is going to be really important when we start to look at how Blake and Ryan compromise Justin's chart. Why? Because when you walk into his aura and they walk into his aura and they're naturally compromising him and dominating him in many ways from an energetic perspective, the fifth line potentially can be nasty, right? And again, we have to keep in mind your energy is your energy. Like there's no bad energy, there's no good energy. It's just understanding each other. One of the things I love most about astrology and human design is it allows us to understand each other. I work with a lot of fifth lines because I love that gritty, nasty energy. I like it. And because I understand their energy, I understand how they operate. Right now, there's an aligned and an unaligned way to go about it. You can be just an ass, and that's obviously not aligned. But there is this aspect with the fifth line, which Justin Baldoni is unconsciously. So he might not, so unconsciously, I want you guys to keep in mind, again, it's the second number in his profile. He likely doesn't even realize it. He likely doesn't even realize that he's reacting in a way that's nasty, that's a form of self-protection. It's unconscious. Ryan has it conscious. And I want you guys to think what, was it Martha Stewart? Yeah, she was like, I don't think he's really funny. Ryan controls the projection field because it's conscious. Justin, it's a very different energy when it's unconscious. And I believe he just genuinely doesn't fully understand how his energy is being taken. And I don't, I think he probably, unless hire me, I'll do your human design reading. Don't worry. Give me a show. Send me a message. But when you don't fully understand that fifth line nastiness, with being a fifth line unconscious being, I genuinely don't think he understands fully how it's taken. And I don't believe he fully understands, because I've worked with thousands of fifth lines, that reaction that's there and how it's a protection mechanism. And so a lot of the fifth lines I work with that have it unconscious, a lot of their journey is just understanding how they're reacting in situations and how their energy reacts. And then bringing attention, conscious awareness to it, right? As Carl Jung would say, my background's in psychology as well. Of course, psychology meets astrology. Why not? Until we make the unconscious conscious, it drives our life and we call it fate. Well, I think that's a piece of the fifth line for Justin, and that quote really plays into him and his energy of, until he understands that reactivity and that nastiness of it as a self-protection mechanism, it's going to continue to cause issues for him. All right, let's continue with what Ross says, because it's going to make sense more as we go. So he says the heretics are like that. You think a heretic, which is a fifth line, can stand up and say, you're a really nice person and I'd like to help you. No, you can't. He says, now I normally don't teach this, but I'm a teacher. The moment you receive a positive projection, what a burden. And so this is the burden as well with the fifth line, is there's also this energy when you receive the positive projections, there's a burden to that, right? So there's a heavier energy when you have a positive projection on a fifth line. And maybe just giving someone a compliment, right? Or maybe because I don't know a lot about his history, but let's just say because he started to step into this feminist role and ally type role, and it started to gain steam, he's trying to live up to those projections as well. So he's trying to fit the role unconsciously, not realizing it, maybe not fully working on his shadows, but it becomes such a burden as well because he's not understanding his energy. And this is everyone for the fifth line. What else? He also says the fives, because of this positive projection, they can also have positive solutions. You have to be very careful, though. If you're a fifth line, my friends, if you're watching this and you're a fifth line, be very careful about the solutions you take on. And if it's unconscious, your fifth line, you're probably unconsciously taking on solutions that you're not meant to fix. right? And this is an interesting dynamic because when we look at this, from what I understand, Sony hired Blake. I don't think he would have. Like, I just don't think they get along. All right, so he says, was he a 3-5? Let me double check. Oh, shit, I didn't mean to do that. Yeah, a 3-5. All right, so Raru, who also says the 3-5, so this is right here, 3-5 profile for Justin Baldoni in Human Design. Raru, who says a 3-5 and 2-5 have a hard time, especially the 3-5. And I'm reading you directly from Ra's words because I want you to hear it from source, from the source of this information without my interpretation of it. That's really important to me as we go deeper into this. The 3-5 and 2-5 have a hard time, especially the 3-5. I understand the dilemma of the third line personality. Okay, so what he means, the dilemma of the third line personality is that's in the front. So we have 3-5, three's in the front. So when he says personality, it's black. That's from your moment of birth. What's red is 88 days before your birth. And it's the astrology. It's like the cosmic like snapshot. He says, I understand the dilemma of the third line personality and the misfortune of having a 5 underneath. This is very important for you guys to understand in understanding Justin Baldoni. Why? When we're looking at profile, so again, this is your profile, and it's going to be the line. So his personality sun is gate 41, line 3. His design sun is gate 28, line 5. When we're looking at profile, guys, this is how people are meant to see you. It's kind of like the role you play in life. So aligning to that, I remember I had a mentor at the International Human Design School. Is like aligning your profile is like riding a magic carpet through life. Like there's bumps, you're going to hit turbulence, but it's a lot smoother, right? It's a lot smoother than taking like a mountain bike or something. And when we understand this, when we understand the profile, and that's someone's public role, that's how they're meant to be seen, that's also how you fulfill your purpose, we start to understand, like profile is so important. Even when I help people with business, we're aligning to profile first. Like we position their entire business, entire brand based on their profile. Your profile is critically important. And that's why I'm hammering home his 5th line. Because I think this is a lot of misunderstanding within himself of his energy and why things are happening how they are, and a misunderstanding in the projection field of the society on him as well. Does this excuse anything? Well, no. If the claims are true, of course not. I just want you to understand, because projection fields and 5th lines can be very difficult for us to put our finger on, because you never truly know them. Why? There's always a projection on them. You're projecting yourself on them. And when we project ourselves on them and our values and who we think they should be, we're never actually getting to know them. And that's why I love human design, because it gives us the potential and the opportunity to really know each other. All right, let's get back to Ra's words. He says, it's one of those things with a 3-5, how incredibly nasty they can be. And they are so uncomfortable with their nastiness. And they are so nasty with themselves. I talked about this in his natal chart too. I said, I think he's gone on such a journey with spirit. Sorry, I'm like, for some reason, I just can't sit still today. Oh, that's why I didn't take my ADHD meds. When we're looking at the 3-5 and how we perceive them and how they perceive themselves, the 3-5 is someone that, especially open head center, look at this, open head center, I don't know what to think is the kind of like not self of it. Open solar plexus, I don't know what to feel. And open ego, this guy has so much openness. Oh, Justin, give me a shout. We can work together on your human design, my friend. I got you. This is like trying to prove yourself, right? And then when you're trying to prove yourself, I want you to think of, this is someone unconsciously that has like a self-protection mechanism of nastiness to protect themselves from the projections of others, but in the same being, in the same human, they're also constantly looking of how can I prove myself? That's a tricky energy to navigate of like, I can't get close to people. No one really knows me. Oh my God, people are projecting all these things on me. And I don't know if I can live up to that. And I'm an idiot, right? Like that's going to be the self-talk of the 3-5, the unconscious 5. Like I'm such an idiot. I'm not smart. I'm not good enough. But shit, I've really got to prove myself to others. And I don't want to trigger others. I don't really want to rock the boat. But I will. You saw his astrology. He's not afraid to with his astrology. That's why I love looking at astrology and the human design piece. I don't know. Like for me, the thing I love most, human design and astrology, especially looking at them together, doesn't excuse people's bad behavior. It helps us understand. And my background again is in psychology. I worked as a counselor for a long time in women's shelters, group homes, equine assisted therapy programs with high risk children and youth, with adults in and out of jail. Like I have a long history in the psychology field as well. And my hope always with human design is that we have a little bit of compassion for the struggles we're each going through. We're each human. We're each trying to work our way through this life and understand ourselves on a deeper level and work through our shadow patterns. And I believe as him being called to spirituality in many ways, he's described as hippy dippy. I do think he found that as a way to help with his shadow patterns and understand this 3-5 energy better, even if he didn't understand that he's a 3-5 in human design. I don't know if he does, but I do believe he had consciously made the decisions to work on himself. But the 3-5, I want you guys to keep in mind with his profile. And this is how, like, again, put yourself in the shoes of someone that feels as though no one understands you, no one gets you, everyone's projecting on you. It's unconscious, so he doesn't know why, right? Versus Ryan, where it's conscious. He has a lot of control over that projection field. Again, think of that Martha Stewart comment where she's like, I don't think he's actually funny. Right? So he has a lot more control over that projection field than I think people realize, versus someone like Justin that is unconscious. And so you get a lot of Raru, who said, you're going to get a lot of I'm an idiot, not they are idiots. Right? So that gives us some insight into the self-talk that goes into this 3-5 being Justin Baldoni in this situation. Rahu says it's all aimed at themselves. Not only that, but the 3-5 has a serious problem. And I work with a lot of 3-5s, guys. And, it's kind of creepy. If you're newer to human design, you're only watching this because you're like enthralled with the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni drama and the lawsuits. And now he dropped a lawsuit against the New York Times and all this. It's really fascinating how true this is. I work with a lot of 3-5s. So what he says is it's all aimed at themselves. The 3-5 is nastier to themselves than anyone can be to them externally. And that can weigh on someone, especially, we saw his natal charts, what I would call volatile. And then you look at his human design, it's very open. There's a lot of white. Well, what does all that white mean? He's susceptible to taking on a lot of energy in his environment. So we have a volatile natal chart, potentially volatile natal chart, with a very open human design body graph where he's taking in a lot of energy, and a 3-5 where he's learning things the hard way. He's falling down. He's messing up his entire life. And an unconscious 5 where he's beating himself up over it and he feels like an idiot, but he also has this energy of like, but I need to prove myself. I need to show I'm worthy. I need to show I can do it. I need to, and at the same time, like, I want to clear up my shadows because I don't want to trigger others. And he's thinking about things that don't matter. And he's trying to be certain things about things with his undefined ajna. And he's not feeling hurt on the sex. He has an undefined throat. And Blake and Ryan have defined throats. That's a lot. Like, I just want you guys to put yourself in those shoes, right? And I'm not saying take sides. That's not what I'm saying. I want you to put yourself in those shoes where you're taking in so much energy around you. And you also have a lot of karma in your natal chart, a lot of volatile energy, and you don't get it. Yeah, that's the thing with the unconscious 5 that people don't get. The 5, you're going through all this trial and error. And maybe you even have this self-talk, right? Because you keep messing up. You're like, oh man, I'm such a fuck up. Like, I'm always, damn it. Like, and maybe that's what he's going through right now. Is like, fuck, I fucked up again. Like, I was trying, you guys, if you saw the natal chart, I was trying to work on these bad habits and bad patterns. And I was trying to better myself. And and make a difference and do these things. And here we go. Like I fucked up. I'm such a mess up. I'm an idiot. And maybe he did mess up. But cancel culture is also not the answer. I don't believe, at least. People can disagree with me, but I don't believe that. So Rahu says, so not only that the 3-5 has serious problem, which is that it doesn't like its personality. Whether you're a 3-5 or not, you're just human. I want you to just put yourself in the shoes of someone that inherently probably doesn't even like their personality much and is constantly on the hamster wheel to try and to prove themselves, to better themselves, to fix themselves because they think they're an idiot. They think something's wrong with them. And then I should have got more water and coffee before I started this stream, guys. And then to be put in a situation with Blake and Ryan, I'm not blaming Blake and Ryan. You're going to see what I mean when I start showing their charts, where he was compromised and essentially dominated by their energy. It was a disaster waiting to happen. So Rahu says, and again, I'm trained by the International Human Design School in BG5, which is a business application. And Rahu is essentially who channeled, he had an experience with the voice, channeled the human design system. So I'm reading his direct words to apply it to this. So we can see there's so much bad human design information online, like just shit human design information. So I want you guys to hear it from the source, and then we can apply it to what's going on. So he says, the 3-5 has a serious problem. They don't like their personality. The self-talk is, I came into the world to be perfect, and look at this shit personality. I just want you guys to sit with that. If you're a 3-5, I want you to sit with that even more, because you've probably had this type of self-talk most of your life, where you feel like a failure, where you feel like you're not good enough, where you feel like life keeps shitting on you. So if you're a 3-5 profile in human design, one, I see you. And two, I don't want to, my goal with this is not, because no one knows until we get everything out. What his case with the New York Times is showing is that it looks like context was left out in the New York Times article. So until we see everything, and if this goes to court and a court of law makes a decision, everyone is innocent until proven guilty. Not the case in cancel culture anymore, but everyone's innocent until proven guilty. What I hope with this, and going so deep into the 3-5 profile. So again, keep in mind, that's your role in life. It's how people see you. If we look at almost like a play, everyone's playing out a role, right? Public role is what it's called in BG5, in the business application of the human design system. It's your public role. It's your role to play. Well, now we have someone that their role, fifth line, is to be the general or the savior. I want you to sit with that. How if you're a 3-5, maybe this is really like, you're like, shit, I feel seen for the first time ever. And if you're not a 3-5 profile, I want you to sit with the feeling of you keep falling down. So consciously, you're always falling down, the third line. That's trial and error. But unconsciously, you're like, there's this disconnect. You know, at some level, you're meant to be like the general or the savior. But man, you're a screw up. Man, you keep failing. Man, you never live up to your potential. They were right about you. Right? It's a tough energy, man. 3-5 is a tough energy. 3-5 emotional projector can verify what you said about us. Thank you. Yes, if anyone's a 3-5, please drop your experience. Thank you for doing that. Because I think it's one thing also to hear like the textbook saying, and it's another thing for me to sit here and I know how it's going to go. I'm going to get comments being like, you're defending him and you're an asshole and you're in this and you're in that. I just want y'all to understand. And if you're a 3-5 profile watching this, I want you to feel seen. Maybe for the first time in your life. Maybe the only reason you ended up on this is because you're just obsessed with pop culture as I am. And so you ended up on this, you clicked on this, you were watching this, and now you're checking out your human design. You're like, oh my God, I'm a 3-5 profile, and life finally makes sense. And again, what I love about this is we get to understand other humans, right? I live in the gray zone. Doesn't make me very popular, but I like to live in the gray zone. So can verify what was said about us, especially how hard we are on ourselves, how we constantly try to better ourselves because we don't like ourselves pretty much. Yeah, it's tough. And it's a lifelong journey of self-forgiveness. Yeah. And so when I saw this about Justin Baldoni, it honestly, guys, it might not be popular to say, but it gave me a completely new lens of him because it's a tough energy to move through. And then if you saw, then I don't know if you guys are spending your whole New Year's with me. I did an hour natal chart reading for him. Like I said, you guys are always like, we want longer readings. I'm like, I could do long. I could talk all day. But we combine this with a volatile chart that he has. So Rahu goes on to say, I came into this world to be perfect. And look at this personality. I came here to be a saint, to be a savior, to be a general. I'm here to rule the world. And look at this shit personality. I'm not a very emotional person, and that that chokes me up because I've worked in both the self-development and psychology fields for so long, and I've heard this reflected back to me so many times from 3-5 profiles that I can actually I have a lot of compassion for the experience of the 3-5. I'm not excusing anything. Rahu continues with blunder after blunder after blunder. And not only that, but they don't let me forget that I blundered. So let's and it's funny because I'll put up one video and people are like, you're pro Justin. Another one, they're like, you're pro Blake. I'm like, I'm not pro anyone. I am just here to see how it plays out and understand people on a deeper level and have compassion for people in their journeys. I want you to think of that. So if you're a 3-5, I want you to put yourself feel that in yourself. But if you're not, put yourself in those shoes. Okay? Put yourself in those shoes. Of not only do you hate on some level your personality because you're here to, on some piece of you knows you're meant to be the savior, the general. You're meant to have these practical solutions and help people, that people can come to you and you help them. But you keep messing up. You keep failing. So you know that. And then not only do you not let yourself forget, but others don't let you forget. And let's not forget it's a 5th line, so the public can't wait to burn you at the stake. People love rallying behind a 5th line when they fit the projection field. They love tearing down a 5th line when they don't. Look at Britney Spears, great example. As long as she fit I'm old enough to remember B-Rit back in the day. As long as she fit the narrative of what the public wanted, everyone was praising her and lifting her up. As soon as she didn't, we had horrific interviews. I can't even repeat on here because my video will get banned. Horrific interviews that woman was put through. And then we wonder why she's struggling with her mental health. I think the gray zone is the healthiest zone to be in personally. Cancel culture is really unhealthy. I agree. I agree. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate this community because this community overall appreciates the gray zone, I believe. So Rahu goes on for the 3-5 profile, which Justin is. No profile has a more difficult line up as a child. There is this unconscious power of the 5 that convinces the mother that God has been born, right? It's like, oh, the savior is here, right? And I talked about this in the natal chart where I said, I'm not convinced there weren't issues in the home. He says he had a really great upbringing, but I'm not convinced they're not issues. And this doubles down on it. And I said in his natal chart reading, I didn't think it was necessarily an abusive home or anything. But when we look at the 3-5, explains it, right? Because the mother is going to be like, oh my goodness, God himself has been born. However, and this is how the 3-5 grows up. Rahu continues, but it's a 3 personality, right? So the 3's in the front. This convinces her immediately that she's made a mistake with this child. I don't know, guys. And we look at someone that struggled in many ways with addiction. This also makes sense. From the time you're a kid, if if you're originally being propped up as like this savior and this saint and the da 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 is the fifth line, and then you keep messing up, and your parents are even like, you're wasting your potential, you're not good enough, blah blah blah. That's not a healthy environment, even if the parents mean well, right? And then he continues, I mean, God forbid the kid is a 3-5 manifester. I have a lot of 3-5 manifester clients, and this holds true. All hell breaks loose. I've given birth to the devil. He continues, I'll read this last thing, and then I want to talk about the issues with their charts. But this is so important to public perception of Justin, and why I believe because let's be honest, it's PR being PR. There's now a smear campaign against him. It's just what it is. I'm not saying anything bad about Blake. It is just what it is. Why it's going to be a lot harder for him to rehab his image than Blake, who's a 2-4. It's gonna be a lot harder because the culture, people, community cannot wait to pull down a fifth line, cannot wait to now be like, again, just like the mother, right? Like, I made a mistake. And how much is that the narrative right now online? I made a mistake backing him. I made a mistake believing in him. I made a mistake thinking he was who I thought he was or who he said he was. How much is that the narrative online? That is literally the narrative online. I made a mistake. He's not who I thought. He's not who he said. Right? So Ross says the most difficult thing for a 5 is to have long-term intimacy in their life. They're here for strangers. So that's the fifth line. For the outsider, and they can feel like an outsider as well, and have power over those they do not know. They have no power over those they know. I want you to just keep that in the back of your minds. Next, after I'm done reading about the 3-5, this is really important, we're going to switch over into how the charts interact. So it's power with strangers, all right? They do not have power with those they know. Hold on to that for me. So they're not 4s. Well, who's the 4? Blake. They have no power over those they know. They are not 4s. Actually, before I go on, I have ADHD. I'm going to forget this. One thing I want you to keep in mind is power over those they know. And that's energy, right? I'm not saying someone or Blake or any other 4 is manipulative or trying to manipulate and be like, I have control over people. No, that's not what it is. It's just the energy of the 4 versus a 5. If you have a 4 and a 5 that are at odds and you're in the middle, you're likely going to go to the 4. It's just the energy of it. It's just energy. Now, you might change your mind when you see the whole situation, but when you have a 2 and a 2-4, which is Blake, and a 3-5, which is Justin, feuding, and you don't know who to believe, you are more likely to go to the 2-4. And especially if it's like a friend group, because the 4 is that friendly energy. The 4 has influence over their network. The 4 is all network. Blake is all network. She has influence over her network, whether intentionally or not. I'm not saying she went and be like, you bitches better be on my side or I'm going to destroy your career. That is not what I'm saying. It is just energy. If you have someone in a friend group or in a workplace that feels caught in the middle and you have a 2-4 come up to you and a 3-5, you're likely going to take the 2-4's side. It's just the energy of it. So the 3-5, if you know them, you lose your power. He says it's very, very difficult for them, therefore, to have long-term relationships. And that would work in business as well, right? Familiarity breeds contempt for you and for them. So familiarity breeds contempt. I also believe the 3-5 energy plays a role in why, like, you see, it's like, why hasn't like a bunch of people come out in favor of him? I do think he's probably seen as like a little bit odd, a little bit weird, probably. It's also much more difficult to get the reward. The stranger nastiness of the 5 doesn't get the social opportunities of the 4. And this is something to keep in mind as well, because now Justin's saying in his lawsuit against the New York Times, or I don't know if it was just like a leaked thing, but they're saying that apparently Ryan had been going to the talent agency trying to sway them to drop Justin a lot earlier than they did. And that is why Justin got the PR crisis team, because that had been going on. And again, if we look at it, you're looking at familiarity, you're looking at networks, people are more likely to side with the 2-4, which is Blake. What else did I want to say? So he says, I'm just going to say this last, and then we're going to look at their charts together. He says the 5 as a child has no power at home. This is the 3-5, so unconscious 5, very different than the 5-1, which is Ryan Reynolds. The 5 as a child has no power at home. It's like little Janie, little Johnny, what to expect? It's just them. It's how they are. But when they meet a stranger on the street, people say, wow, what a really intelligent and powerful child you have. And the parent will say, this kid? Whereas when neighbors or the parents of the 4 child say, wow, your child's so wonderful and sweet, right? So this is the thing with the 4 as well with Blake, the 2-4. Keep this in mind. So that whereas the neighbors of the parents of the 4 say, wow, your child is so wonderful, so sweet. So the network, people close to you, it's just the energy of the 4. And then the mom will say for the 2-4, well, of course, that's my little Johnny. He's wonderful, right? For the 2-4. Very different than the 3-5. That's contrasting Blake and Justin Baldoni. So it's people are going to say, and people feel like, yeah, the 2-4 is wonderful. Of course they are. And then the 3-5, it's going to be like, I don't know, like, there's something off, right? Now, Raw also says when you wake up the 3-5, there's incredible potential in them. All right, let's look at their charts. I just wanted to set the stage. Not having power over those you know is really hard emotionally, by the way. I believe that. I can see a lot of situations like this in my own life. People siding with others even when they had allegiance to me. Yep. It's like the black sheep energy. I heard someone say like and I even had said it at one point, like, does Justin see himself as an outsider? I don't know if he does, but when people pick up that black sheep energy from him, it's definitely the 5th line, the unconscious 5 for sure. Absolutely. And how painful is that, right? Because the 5 line's already going to be beating themselves up, feeling like they're not good enough. And then when you think someone had allegiance with you, you thought someone was your friend, and now they're siding with the other person, right? So on the set, he might have been like, he may have been very taken off guard that everyone has an allegiance with her, and he might have been very shocked. I wouldn't be surprised. All right, let's look at their charts together. So that's Justin. This is Ryan Reynolds. Human design chart is a 5-1. And so the biggest thing I see right away is the defined throat. Especially if you watch the natal chart reading for Justin, where I talk about like he does want to have power, right? He does want to have control. It's that 5th line. But there's also this unconscious talk of like, you're always a failure, you're always messing up, and the projection fields from others combined with he's around someone with a very strong identity, very strong throat, and he has an undefined G center, undefined throat. And then we look at Blake, very defined throat and G center. Now, the ego isn't directly into the throat, but this is also where you could see, her maybe being taken, like the defined ego here is very much like, I want, so I make it happen. So I can see how some people, she might rub some people the wrong way, but people are a lot more forgiving of the 2-4 as well. She's also right angle across the sleeping phoenix. I did not notice that before. We won't even get into that today, or that's a whole other can of worms. But this is very much like right angle cross. One thing I will say is very independent energy, and it can kind of come off sometimes as like snooty, if you will, or bitchy, if you will. But the ego here, right up into her identity, this is a design of needing to be first, channel of initiation, needing to be first. So you've put her with someone like Justin Baldoni, who has the 5, who, if we look even at his natal chart, wants to have control, desires to have control. And then you automatically put him with 2 very strong throats, very strong identities, and someone, Blake, who's like, I want it done this way. And it's not necessarily wrong for her either, right? Like, this isn't like screw Blake, and who is she to come in and say this? Energy speaks before you do. She comes in and she's like, this is what I want. This is the direction we're going in. She probably doesn't even realize it. Well, she wouldn't actually realize it because it's half unconscious. 25s personality, 51's unconscious. So she probably won't even realize she's doing it. That she like comes in and is like, all right, and I need to be first and I need to have control because I want it done this way. That's definitely the ego. Like his podcast host. I've never seen an ego that has all the gates. Yeah. Blake Lively's an intense energy. I don't even know if I've seen anyone with all the gates in the ego, to be honest. And up into the G center, and she has the 26 to 44, which is the channel the entrepreneur. It's like the material plane. So I completely see how she probably came in, and this is probably where she also gets that energy of like, you hear a lot. Like y'all can't pretend that there's not a bunch of information online that she's hard to work with, because there's a bunch of information online that she's hard to work with. And I also don't doubt it. I don't know if her and I would get along. I'm just saying, nothing against her. I have a defined ego as well. We compromise each other in a lot of ways. I have 58, she has 48. We probably wouldn't get along. I have a defined ego, defined G center, defined throat. And it doesn't make either of us wrong. We just wouldn't, our energy would be like oil and water. But this is truly someone, ego is I want. Ego's willpower. So we can start to see and understand even her from a little bit of a different perspective of, she's kind of designed to show up and be like, this is what I want. This is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to get. Doesn't make her a bitch. Doesn't make her wrong. It means these two beings should have never worked together, to be honest. That's what it means. So this is someone very strong energy. She needs to be first, channel the entrepreneur. So she wants to take control of the situation. She wants it to go her way. Again, not wrong. It's her energy. You just have to make sure you're with the right people. Yeah. So channel the entrepreneur, she's going to have this idea of how she wants it to go, how they're going to sell it, how they're going to package it. She's going to have this energy and this idea of like, this is how we sell to people and what people are looking for. The channel of the entrepreneur is going to have that like inherent way of being. So she is like, you'd almost, and I'm not going to say that I don't mean this negatively. I know people have a lot of like attachments to the word I'm about to use. I don't mean it negatively. She's someone that you probably see as egotistical a bit. But again, it's not wrong. It's her energy. Or she'd probably be that woman where you're just like, I just don't like her. I don't know why, but I don't like her. And I'm seeing that a lot online as well, as people, are completely scrapping her perspective of what went on. And they're like, I just don't like her. Yeah, I don't doubt it. Like that is it's a strong ass energy. All the gates in the ego. And then the 5 to 15, so channel of rhythm, she wants it to be her rhythm, her flow. Now we're starting to understand, someone that comes in, I need to have it like this. This is the direction we're going. It's based on my identity. It's based on my flow. And this is how we're going to package it and sell it. Can we not see, especially if you've watched the natal reading, how this was a setup for disaster with the two of them? And again, what I love about human design, I'm going to take it from her perspective now, is when we understand this and we understand someone's energy, we're like, oh, we get to understand each other on a deeper level. We can have a little bit more compassion for people because your energy speaks before you do. And she's not wrong for being like that. She's not wrong for going after what she wants and seeing things in a way of like, this is how I want packaged. This is how I want it done. I want control over the end product. I want control over the whole product and how we're selling it too. That's literally how she's designed. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to get along with her, but that she's just being herself. And she's going to move really fast, 34 to 20. It's a pure pure manifesting generator channel. So she's going to move really fast. And people, aka Justin Baldoni, might feel left behind and bulldozed and steamrolled because you have this being coming in, manifesting generator. She's moving really fast. She's doing things how she wants to do them. She wants to be in her flow. Therefore, it has to go her way. She has to have control over it all. And she wants to, as a channeled entrepreneur, this is how we're going to sell it. This is how we're going to do it. This is how it's going to look and how it's going to go. And you have Justin over here, who we just went over the 3-5. He still has that probably internal dialogue of like, I have to prove myself. I'm a screw up. I'm an idiot. Like I have to prove that I can be the savior and I can bring this to life and I can make this happen. And then she comes in and like, and again, I'm not saying that she's wrong. That's her energy. That's her energy. You go, girl. You go, girl. You be you. You be your energy. That's the whole fucking point of human design is be you. But we can start to see how there was conflict and it was set. The stage was set from day one. My partner is 5 to 15. Their flow usually wins. Yeah. Yeah. It wins. It's a very strong aura. It does win. You get pulled into that person's flow. So thank you for pointing that out, because that's a great point as well to just underline is her 5 to 15, her flow, she will pull people into her flow. And so for someone like Justin, and look, he's going to have his fixed patterns and she compromises that. He's gonna be like, these are the patterns I wanted. This is how it was supposed to go. This is the rhythm it was supposed to go in. This is how everything was supposed to go. And then she comes in. And again, it's not intentional. It's just people being who they are. Can we stop trying to tear people down for just being who they are, or calling people a bitch for just being who they are? Can we allow women and men to just be who they are? It doesn't mean that it's okay to be harmful. It doesn't mean it's okay to cross boundaries. It doesn't mean it's okay, doesn't mean it's okay to be a shitty person. Learn from your mistakes, please. Everyone messes up. Everyone's an ass sometimes. Everyone makes mistakes. No one is above that. I know for myself, I sure as shit would not want my entire life recorded and like all these interviews online and all this stuff in my whole life online. I wouldn't want that. You couldn't pay me enough to be a celebrity. So what I'm hoping for today is that we see it from a perspective of, we're not excusing if there is illegal or bad behavior. We're not excusing that. And can we just understand each other on a bit of a deeper level? And from Blake's perspective, can we be like, she's not actually a bitch. She's probably going to come off abrasive. She's probably going to come off dominating. She's probably going to come off as someone that's like my way or the highway, which makes her highly difficult to work with. But she's not being wrong. She's just being her. Why do we have to make someone wrong for who they are? You know, and yeah, she moves fast. I honestly just think none of them had any business working together in the first place. I don't think if they had any control over the situation, they would have. From what I understand, Sony hired her. So we've been going for a while. So I'm just going to touch on some points here. So if we look at Ryan and Justin, these are their charts together. Dominance channels and compromise channels are difficult energy. They're difficult energy to experience. They're difficult energy to deal with. So when we look at dominance channels, this is where one person is going to have the gate and the other person has the channel. So if we're looking here, I don't know why it's not showing. Why it won't show the whole. Yeah, I don't know why the whole thing's not showing for you guys. And it won't let me scroll down. All right. So anyway, dominance channels in terms of Ryan, and I was hoping to just show you how it's laid out there. In terms of Ryan and Justin Baldoni. So the channel of power is 34 to 57. There is a power struggle and the stage of a power struggle from day one. When we're looking at this, Ryan dominates Justin. All right. So, and here's the thing, it's not intentional. It's just how the energy is going to go. And Justin's going to feel like he's taking all the power. And so I think even just Ryan being on the set, to be honest, would have brought that energy of like, oh shit, well, power couple now is coming in and trying to take all the power. right? And it wouldn't have been intentional. See, so we're going to see here 57 to 34 on Justin. See how it's white? And see how it's black here for Ryan? So Ryan has that as a strength. Justin doesn't have any of that energy. So it's going to feel like they came to the set and all of a sudden, like he's just taking he's trying to take the power away. Whether that was Ryan's intention or not, that's the energy dynamics at work. Now, doesn't mean that every time there's a dominance channel, there's going to be issues. Not necessarily. That's where you also learn, right? Like very often we also karmically are brought into contact with people that have the channel where we're open so we can learn. But if it's oil and water and there's already power dynamic issues and Ryan feels like Justin's fat shaming his wife, there's going to be issues right away, right? So, they weren't really expressing the higher evolution of that energy or the higher expression of that energy. We also have compromise channels. So compromise channels is not good. It's not like, you want pizza for dinner and your partner wants burgers. And so you compromise and have pizza tonight and burgers tomorrow. That's not what it is. It's like one person feels like the other's compromising their strengths. Is the best way I can, like, you're not seeing my strengths. My strengths aren't being recognized. And you're trying to like overpower my strengths with your strengths. Now, Justin does it to Ryan with the channel of struggle 28 to 38. So it's going to feel like this power struggle again. It's literally going to feel like a power struggle between the two of them. And then the alpha, which is 31 to 7. Ryan does that to Justin. Power again. 31 is leadership, a fight for power, a fight for leadership on the set. So energetically, before Ryan even says one word, that's the energy that's coming across. That's the energy that's coming across. And then, of course, like we have, again, think of that 3-5 that Justin is, that paranoia, right? So he's feeling that energy shift on the set. And now there's the paranoia, and it's like the nastiness kicks in as a self-protection mechanism. Now, him with Blake. There's a lot of energy there. So we're looking at compromise channels. Again, rhythm, 5 to 15, we talked about this, right? Like he's going to have his fixed patterns. This is fixed. This is how I want it to go. And she's going to come in and like steamroll with her rhythm. Doesn't make either wrong or bad. And then it feels like if you have that fixed rhythms as Justin has of like just being steamrolled, like this is how I wanted to go. This is the vision I had in my head. We talked about that in his nail chart, like the vision he had. This is the vision I had in my head. And now she comes in and steamrolls everything. And now everyone's doing what she wants because she's also a 2-4 and the network's going to go with the 2-4. Like that's just like, also just that just sucks, man. It just sucks. I feel for all of them because everyone was just being themselves and in their energy and being who they're meant to be. And it was just a shitty situation for everyone. Also does not excuse illegal activity. Struggle. Again. Now, this is Baldoni compromising Blake. So there's going to be a struggle and a battle like this back and forth. Like when we look at it, the channel of struggle is always going to be like struggling and fighting for what's worth fighting for, essentially, like struggling for what's worth fighting for. Well, now you have 3 people actually, because we saw this issue with Ryan and Justin as well, that are all fighting for what they think they want. And you have Blake and Ryan who are obviously going to be on each other's side because they're married. And it's going to feel like them versus Justin because they're all struggling for something and it's in opposition. And they're all going to feel compromised. So Justin and Ryan are going to feel compromised by Justin, and Justin's going to feel compromised by them. And so then it becomes a power struggle even more. It was just written in the stars for this to be a hot mess. And then, like, look at this. Dominance channels, initiation, wanting to be first, 51 to 25, Blake to Justin. So this is he doesn't have any gates there. Compromise, one of them will have a gate. And the other one will have the channel. When we're looking at dominance, again, one person will have the channel. It's completely white for the other person. And again, with the right people, if you meet the right people in your life, this is like a learning opportunity. You get to experience that energy. You get to be a little bit more wise on that energy. But when you meet the wrong people, it's just oil and water. It's really bad. It's a recipe for disaster. So initiation, right? So she wants to be first. So she's going to dominate. Charisma, Blake to Justin. That's going to be the 20 to 34. And so she's going to be moving fast. She's going to have that charisma combined with the 4. So she's going to have influence over the network. It's going to dominate over his, especially with the 5. We have surrender, 26 to 44. The surrender, keeping in mind that surrender is the channel of the entrepreneur. All right. So when we're looking at that channel of the entrepreneur energy is going to be the direction of the movie, how to package the movie, how to sell the movie, all of those little things. And I know they still had Sony to answer for, but they're going to want to say on how it goes. And then we have the 27 to 50. This one is Justin Baldoni dominating Blake. She does not have that, the 50 to 27. So if we look here, see how it's white? But look at all her channels and energy compared to him. So he has the 50 to 27. She does not. That's going to be a tribal energy, kind of like a nurturing energy, if you will, custodian. So it could be the custodianship over like the movie as well, fights for rights around the movie, potentially, maybe. And her feeling that like he had custodianship on something that she wanted. So anyway, I talked a lot longer on both videos than I expected today, but I hope you guys enjoyed this and I hope it gave a little bit of perspective on them. You know, the 3-5 is a tough profile to have from the beginning. And then adding on top of that, like we saw how much he's compromised and dominated by their energy, especially Blake. Like, look at all 3 dominance channels. And then the rhythm, which is going to be a tough one, right? Like if you see it as your movie, your set, what you're doing, your project, and someone else comes in and like everyone goes in their flow, no doubt that triggered some of the natal chart explosiveness and volatile energy. So anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it at that. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you know someone that loves pop culture, loves human design, give them a tag, share the video with them. I hope you enjoyed this and we can do more videos like this. But more than anything, my goal with this was to see people as human and see them, both Justin and Blake, from a new perspective of, all right, well, now I see, because this is what we see online, right? Like, I just don't like her. She's a bitch, right? I think there's like a trending hashtag, something like Blake Lively's a mean girl or something like that. It makes sense when you start why people feel that way when you see an ego with all 4 gates and 2 channels. That's wild. And then you can also see with Justin how and why that 5th line, right? The projection field around him. And as soon as the public felt as though that projection field was shattered and he didn't live up to it, how fast the public's like tear him down. And now it's coming out that apparently maybe there was some like misrepresentation of some of the texts and stuff. So it'll be interesting to see it come out. As I always say, use discernment. Everything is PR. Everything is marketing. At the end of the day, both sides, it's like a tug of war back and forth. Who can pull the public into their favor? And if it goes to court, we're gonna figure it out. A jury can figure it out. But more than anything, I hope this just gave you perspective on both of them. All right, my friends, I'll see you in the next one. Let me know if you want more of this. Drop it in the comments and I can make more videos like this. Bye, guys. Happy New Year as well. It was so nice to spend it with you guys.